At 657 pounds, Amber couldn't make it down her own staircase without her body fighting for every single step.
I see a lot of pity in my mom's face when she looks at me. Mostly, I think she's just sad for me.
At only 23 years old when she was filmed for season 3, Amber was barely an adult, one of the youngest the show had ever filmed to this day. Most patients on My 600-Pound Life spend decades reaching a weight like that. But what she did next is the part nobody saw coming. Even Dr. Now couldn't believe it.
Amber's done a great job. More and more, she's becoming independent. I'm proud of Amber sticking to the program. She has a ways to go, but I'm confident she will get there.
To understand how she got here, though, you have to go back to when she was just a little kid. Amber weighed around 160 pounds at just 5 years old. And even then, food was already tied to something emotional.
I have struggled with my weight my whole life. When I was 5, I think I weighed close to 160 pounds. I was a little kid that didn't know how to take care of myself emotionally or physically. I knew that people expressed love to me by giving me treats, and I tried to love myself and take care of myself by eating.
Her parents expressed love through food. But without realizing it, they were laying the groundwork for something much bigger. And nobody caught it early enough to stop it. By the time she got to high school, things had gotten bad enough that her regular doctor's scale couldn't weigh her anymore. They had to take her to a special scale in the back, built for wheelchair patients. When she graduated, she weighed over 400 pounds. Then came college. She started gaining even faster, stopped socializing, and eventually dropped out of school completely. And with nothing to do, she just stayed home. And the longer it went on, the worse her weight became. But that's when Rowdy came into her life. Rowdy was her boyfriend, and he was attracted to larger women. By her own admission, she gained around 200 pounds after they got together.
I do feel guilty about bringing the food, but at the same time, it's so hard to stop.
And that had been the pattern her whole life. The people close to her were expressing care through food without realizing the damage it was doing. Which makes a lot more sense once you hear Amber talk about why she actually ate. Because it had very little to do with hunger.
I probably eat 4 or 5 times a day. There's anticipation before I eat, but it's not enjoyable. It's a feeling of desperation and sadness.
Amber describes the feeling before a meal not as excitement, but as desperation. She had deep anxiety that had never been properly addressed. And for as long as she could remember, food was the one thing that made it stop. The moment she started eating, the stress and the negative thoughts went quiet, at least for a little while. So it stopped being about hunger for a long time. Food was the only coping mechanism she had ever known.
Amber's anxiety is worrisome. Food helps calm her down to feel less anxious. Now, the overeating has just spiraled out of control.
Amber spent most of her day thinking about what she was going to eat next. And when she wasn't thinking about food, her mind went somewhere darker.
In general, I feel like I'm a pretty disappointing kid to have, and I think I would have a hard time as a parent coping with having a kid like me.
Is that pressure that you're putting on yourself, or does that come from your family?
I don't know. I'm not super thrilled that I wasted all of my youth being immobile and massive and like too fat to kind of enjoy it. Like, I'm really mad right now. Like, I'm mad at myself. Like, why did I let that happen? And I can't do anything about it. Like, I can't make it better.
She felt like a failure and a burden to everyone around her. Simple things like getting dressed and moving around the house had become a daily reminder of how bad things had gotten. And the worse it got, the more she ate. And the more she ate, the worse it became. But somewhere underneath all that hopelessness, she wasn't ready to give up just yet. So she decided to go see Dr. Now. But getting there was already a disaster before it even started.
What about a luggage cart?
Yeah.
That woman just snapped a picture of me, and I'm not sure I like that.
From the moment they arrived at the airport, things started going wrong. Her wheelchair broke before she even reached the gate. And with Amber unable to walk the full length of the airport, her dad had to load her onto a luggage cart and roll her through the airport. People stopped walking just to stare. Some pulled out their phones and started taking pictures openly. It was humiliating. And there was nothing she could do except sit there and take it. When she finally boarded, she had to buy 2 seats just to fit. And even then, getting settled was a struggle. By the time they landed in Houston, she was exhausted and embarrassed. But as humiliating as the journey was, nothing quite prepared her for stepping on Dr. Now's scale for the first time.
I have a lot of anxiety and fear about this. I'm mortified.
Dr. Now wasn't there to dwell on the number. He wanted to understand how she was living. A few simple questions told him the whole story. Her parents and boyfriend were enabling her.
Amber is surrounded by enabler with her family. I want to see some weight loss from her before I even consider her for any kind of surgery.
Dr. Now also noticed something else. The way the weight was distributed in her legs pointed to a condition called lymphedema. This is a painful disorder where fat builds up abnormally, mostly in the legs. Surgery could treat it eventually, but not at her current weight. First, she had to lose enough to even be eligible. And so Dr. Now set the target to lose 20 pounds in 1 month. But the goal itself wasn't the hardest part. It was everything it would take to get there. And that work started the moment she got home.
For the first time, I'm eating healthy and in lesser portions. I'm getting out and exercising too. Being more active has been my primary focus because I know that not just dieting, but exercise are how I'm going to beat this.
To make this work, Amber's entire family uprooted their lives and moved from Portland to Houston. She understood that her family was rearranging their entire lives for her, but instead of feeling crushed by that pressure, it pushed her harder to succeed. While her family got fast food, Amber cooked chicken and vegetables for herself instead. She also started walking again, just a little further each day, even though her massive legs made every step painful. By the time of her next weigh-in, she had actually lost 17 pounds. It wasn't quite the 20 Dr. Now had asked for, but his reaction said everything.
Amber lost 17 pounds, and this is close enough for me to see that she's willing and able to make changes to be successful with the bypass surgery.
Dr. Now could see that Amber had genuinely changed her habits, that she felt highly motivated to put in the work, and that was enough for him to approve her for gastric bypass surgery. Dr. Now reduced her stomach from the size of a football to the size of a baseball, the idea being that she would feel full much faster and eat far less as a result. The surgery itself went smoothly, but 3 days after being discharged, Amber was rushed back to the hospital.
Amber came to emergency room with irregular heartbeat and chest pain. It is possible that she could be having a heart attack. We need to find out what's going on with her immediately.
Fortunately, it wasn't a heart attack. She was diagnosed with premature atrial contractions. Essentially, her heart was reacting to the stress her anxiety was putting on her body. And it made complete sense when you thought about it. Food consumption had been Amber's only way of dealing with stress and anxiety her entire life. Surgery had effectively eliminated that. And with no replacement coping mechanism, her anxiety had nowhere to go. So it manifested physically instead. Dr. Now referred her to therapy to find new, healthier ways to cope, and everything began to move in the right direction. Over the months that followed, her hard work really started to show. 7 months after joining the program, Amber was down to 565 pounds. And for the first time in years, she got behind the wheel of a car and drove. By month 9, she was at 512 pounds and went clothes shopping by herself. She had gone from a size 6X down to a 2X. Standing in that store holding up clothes that actually fit was something she hadn't experienced in years. By month 12, she was under 400 pounds for the first time in a decade. Dr. Now could barely hide how proud he was.
Come in.
Hello.
Hey, Dr. Now.
I see you lost some more weight. I'm glad to see that you're making good progress.
These weren't just weight loss milestones. These were pieces of a normal life she was getting back one by one.
A year ago, I'm not sure I believed my life would ever get any better. A year ago, I didn't have hope.
I think we just need milk and we're good to go. Now, I'm shopping for myself, I'm eating healthy, and I'm working out. I'm able to go out in the world and kind of enjoy life a bit more.
Amber, who now identifies as they, them, didn't slow down after the show. A year after the episode aired in 2015, they started posting frequently on Instagram, and it was clear how much had already changed. Even though Amber turned down My 600-Pound Life for additional follow-up coverage and Where Are They Now specials, they continued to keep fans updated and enjoy engaging with them on social media. Amber slowly built a following of over 500,000 people, posting cute selfies and updating their weight loss journeys, showing just how far they'd come. During a Q&A with their followers in October 2025, Amber revealed something that surprised a lot of people. Despite their massive Instagram following, They'd never made a dime from social media and worked a regular job in IT. Amber also opened up about ex-boyfriend Rowdy. The two had broken up, though Amber was quick to add they're still friends. In December 2025, Amber revealed they'd also been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a condition that weakens connective tissue and leaves skin fragile and stretchy. It was one more thing piled on top of the loose skin Amber was already dealing with from her lymphedema and weight loss. Surgery was the only real fix, but their insurance wouldn't cover it. But in January 2026, one of their videos went viral.
Bleh. Bleh. Batman. Do I want skin surgery someday? Yeah. It's just super expensive. I've gotten quotes from a few different surgeons over the years, but nothing has been anything shy of about $120,000 for a full course of treatment, so.
It reached Dr. Sean Moshrefi, the plastic surgeon Amber always dreamed of working with. After landing a consultation, Amber launched a GoFundMe campaign, asking their followers to help cover the cost of their skin removal surgery.
I was not expecting my last reel to do as well as it did, and it didn't just do well by the numbers, it succeeded in its purpose. My dream surgeon reached out to me, and I have now had a consultation with the plastic surgeon who I think is best fit for my case. And I need help fundraising. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Amber. I was on a season 3 episode of My 600-Pound Life.
By February, Amber had their first skin removal procedure on their arms. In total so far, Amber has lost nearly 500 pounds since first appearing on My 600-Pound Life, producing one of the most successful and remarkable outcomes in the show's 13-year history. The same person who once felt completely hopeless about life is now an inspiration to hundreds of thousands of people around the world who are struggling with weight loss problems. And just like Amber, Nikki also became an inspiration to many fans of the show. Tune in for Nikki's story on your screen next, or check out all of the most dramatic before and after transformations ever.